$27,400. They laughed. In the grand lobby of the Homeowners Association headquarters, the sound of snickers echoed off marble walls. A new cleaner had arrived, quiet, deliberate, and wearing a uniform a size too big. To them she was invisible, unimportant, a background character in their busy lives. One known the race of thrillers. Growth 100, but what no one knew was that behind her steady eyes a lifetime of experience, a plan for sweeping change, abtraquardstabzundred, and the courage to do what others only whispered about. In 3 days, the power dynamics of the entire organization would be turned upside down. 400. Every generation witnesses a moment when the underestimated rise. Retails translate the 27,400 when ordinary people with extraordinary resolve step out of the shadows and change the course of events. This is not just a story about a cleaner, 27. It is a story about dignity, courage, and the quiet power of preparation. It is about a community tired of being ignored. He acquisition get 27, salary too comfortable leadership, the cracks forming beneath them, and one person willing to hold a mirror to their failures. The opening scene begins in a place many of us know, community run by an HOA where decisions affect everyday lives. From the fees people pay to the safety of the spaces they walk. For years, a small group held power, acting as if rules applied to others, but not themselves. Residents felt unheard, frustrated, and powerless. 200. Into this environment walked someone everyone dismissed, yet who carried within her the spirit of change, the patience of experience, 27,400 and the determination to hold people accountable. What unfolds is not just an act of justice, but a living lesson in perseverance, empathy, and leadership. 27,400. It's a story of someone who refused to be defined by her title, who recognized that authority without responsibility is fragile. 27,400. And who believed that even the smallest voice could command the room if it spoke with truth and courage. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, nestled behind gates and winding streets, stood a homeowners associations, HOA that had long since forgotten its purpose. Rules were enforced not for fairness, but for favoritism. The lawns sparkled, but the people did not. Complaints went unheard. Decisions were made behind closed doors. And those who spoke up were silenced, mocked, or dismissed. Then one autumn morning, a new face arrived, a woman in a plain blue uniform pushing a mop and a bucket. Her name was Maya. To most, she was just the new cleaner. She swept the floors of the community center, emptied trash bins, and quietly smiled at residents. Some laughed behind her back. Others whispered rumors. But Maya kept working, not out of obligation, but out of a quiet, and translate, my salon proposos could believe then shkokable belief that things seven scod be better. What they didn't know was that Maya had spent years studying community law, leadership, and governance. Her humble appearance was not a disguise but a decision. To see things from the ground up, to understand the people she hoped to serve. By the third day, and enough, she uncovered financial management, unfair practices, and decisions that exploited the very residents the HOA had promised to protect. 400. Armed with evidence and guided by principle, she called an emergency meeting. Residents arrived expecting another, quiet, forgettable gathering. Instead, Maya stood at the podium, her mop put away, her eyes steady. She spoke softly at first, but her words carried weight. 27 tottered, 400. She reminded them that an HOA isn't just a board. It's the heartbeat of a neighborhood. She named every act of wrongdoing she'd uncovered, backed by proof. She'd 100. The room went silent. Even the most cynical members shifted in their seats. And then she did what no one thought possible. Using the bylaws the HOA itself had forgotten, she called for a vote of no confidence. The community rose to its feet, one by one, and voted to remove the corrupt management. In 3 days, the new cleaner had become the symbol of hope, accountability, and change. But Maya didn't stop there. She set out to rebuild trust. She worked with residents to create transparent policies. A 27,400. She started a scholarship fund for young people in the neighborhood sourced from the recovered misused funds. She showed the community that leadership isn't about power. It's about service. What began as ridicule ended as reverence. Ordinary people, retirees, small business owners, began volunteering to help. Streets once divided became connected. Meetings once empty became vibrant. Rules became fair. Slowly, steadily, the neighborhood transformed into a place where people felt safe, respected, and heard. Humility is one of the most underestimated qualities in personal growth, and the personal growth, it's often mistaken for weakness or lack of confidence. Can translate ditsi 400s when in reality it is the steady foundation upon which lasting influence is built. Humility allows a person to see clearly, to acknowledge their limitations, embrace learning, and put the needs of others above their own. When people think of transformative leaders, the Malin may imagine bold personalities or commanding presences. But time and again, history shows us that the most profound and enduring change often emerges from leaders who carry themselves with quiet strength rather than loud ego. At its core, humility is about perspective. 127, 400. It means recognizing that no one person all the answers and that every voice in a room has the potential to add something valuable. This is why humble leaders tend to be better listeners, collaborators, and problem solvers. Mana 20 self-thoughts, they don't approach situations with the assumption that they're the smartest person present. Instead, they approach with curiosity and openness, which makes others feel respected and heard. This approach builds loyalty and trust in a way that sheer authority cannot. Humility also acts as a shield against arrogance and complacency. When someone understands that their position, knowledge, or power is temporary and shared, they are far less likely to misuse it. This mindset fosters accountability. Seenhaler 7s, Fuanasonet for a days. It keeps leaders grounded in the reality of their responsibilities rather than caught up in the illusion of control. Alzadrius Twentin Severand, and because humble leaders admit mistakes and learn from them, they're better equipped to adapt and grow rather than double down on errors. In Susif Tums, in the context of everyday life, humility manifests in subtle but powerful ways. In 27, 400, it's the employee who credits the team rather than themselves for a project's success. 400. It's the neighbor who volunteers quietly to help others without expecting recognition. It's the mentor who shares not just their successes, but also their failures to teach a younger generation. In each case, Perchalim Vaints, Queen Infthopentariz. My salary for humility doesn't diminish the individual. It elevates them because it allows their actions to speak louder than their ego. Another aspect of the followers pes fructausend it is if of humility is its ability to create connection. When a leader or community member presents themselves as infallible or superior, my 400, and it erects in vit 7 formidable walls between them and others. But humility breaks down those barriers, creating a sense of shared humanity. People feel safer. People feel safer to share their ideas, voice their concerns, and engage fully when they know they won't be dismissed or belittled. This dynamic can transform workplaces, neighborhoods, and organizations into spaces where creativity and cooperation flourish. Humility also requires courage. Tier 27-400. It takes courage to admit that you don't know everything, and to the major thing to apologize when you've made a mistake or to defer credit when you've played a major role. In societies where bravado and self-promotion are often rewarded, humility can feel counterintuitive. Yet, it's precisely this courage, the courage to step back and center others, that makes humility so powerful. It flips the script on for a day what leadership and success are supposed to look like. Moreover, humility doesn't mean lacking ambition or drive. Prowlers 100. It doesn't mean silencing yourself or shrinking your goals. True humility is a balancing act. Than 27-400, believing in your own worth and potential while remaining open to learning, growth, and collaboration. A humble person can still pursue bold visions and achieve great things. They simply do so with the awareness that their accomplishments are intertwined with the contributions of many others. In times of crisis or conflict, humility becomes even more essential. When tensions rise, Salazar the humble approach can de-escalate and refocus energy on solutions rather than blame. It allows leaders to admit when they're wrong, change course, foreign hunters, and invite out input from those closest to the issue. This flexibility is often the difference between success and failure in difficult moments. Finally, Putellard, 400. Humility inspires others to act with integrity. When people see someone in a position of influence behaving with modesty and respect, sets a standard that ripples outward. Teams become more cooperative. Communities become more resilient. Organizations become more ethical. In this way, humility is not just a personal virtue, but a collective force multiplier. 400 Zerts. There is a quiet power that resides in ordinary people. Individuals who may not hold official titles, appear in headlines, or possess vast resources, but who still manage to shape the world and change it in profound ways. It's easy to assume that real change only comes from positions of authority, wealth, or fame. Salarin, yet history and everyday life both demonstrate that transformative action often begins with someone who simply refuses to stay silent, turns an idea into action. Q Ingeter, 400, choose courage over comfort. The beauty of ordinary people making extraordinary impacts lies in their relatability. They are parents, neighbors, teachers, and mock these savanders, and volunteers. They walk the same streets and face the same struggles as everyone else. When they take a stand or lead an initiative, their actions resonate because they come from a shared place of humanity. This accessibility inspires others to believe that they, too, can be part of meaningful change. Small acts often serve as the seeds of large transformations. A single person can organize a neighborhood clean up, start a mentoring program, or bring attention to an overlooked injustice. These acts might seem minor in isolation, Fair in 27,400, but they have a ripple effect that extends far beyond their original scope. One spark of initiative can ignite an entire movement when others see it, feel its power, and join in. Ordinary individuals also bring fresh perspectives and creative problem solving precisely because they are not entrenched in formal structures or rigid hierarchies. 27,400. They see problems up close and understand the lived experience of those affected by them. This proximity allows them to craft practical, innovative solutions that institutional decision makers may overlook. In many cases, they are also more trusted by the community, making their efforts more authentic and impactful. Another hallmark of ordinary people making extraordinary impact is their resilience. Once Steve Ewer's poets, others in skill funded, without the backing of institutions or large-scale funding, they often rely on perseverance, ingenuity, and networks of mutual support. 400. This builds not only stronger projects, but stronger character. Their efforts tend to be rooted in deep values, rather than short-term recognition, which allows them to persist even in the face of skepticism or obstacles. Equally important is the power of example. When summoned. 27,400. When someone from within a community steps forward, they signal to others that leadership is not reserved for a chosen few. They normalize the act of engagement. 400. They model courage in a way that feels attainable. This effect compounds as more people witness and participate in change. 400. Creating a culture of action rather than apathy. Stories of ordinary people making extraordinary impact can be found everywhere. The 27,400. The teacher who stays after hours to tutor struggling students, the nurse who advocates for better patient care, the shop owner who donates to local shelters, Rolals and 170 nunny some secundus brots, the neighbor who medias boots quani salary for Veebles bridges. None of these roles require fame or power, but poet. Each can leave a lasting legacy on those touched by their efforts. What's remarkable is how such people often act without fanfare. Sralader. 7,400. Their motivation typically comes from a sense of duty, compassion, or belief rather than personal gain. This authenticity amplifies their impact. Colors can 70 in these pines and cadrils, the cellen fraudred, fafquis consents others as insincerity, rather than submit insincerity rather than self-promotion. When an ordinary people act for the good of others, it can cut through cynicism and inspire genuine hope. Youth technology and interconnectedness have further expanded the capacity for ordinary individuals to have extraordinary impact. 400. A single voice on social media can bring attention to issues previously ignored. Crowdfunding can mobilize resources for a cause without needing traditional gatekeepers. Digital tools make it possible for everyday citizens to coordinate, educate, and advocate on scales once unimaginable. Finally, there is the cumulative effect of countless small actions. Folders are for a day, while it is tempting to focus on singular heroes. The truth is that extraordinary impact often emerges from the collective efforts of many people doing their part. 27,400. A society or organization improves when ordinary individuals decide to embody integrity, compassion, and initiative in their daily lives. 27,400. These contributions build upon one another, shifting norms and expectations until change becomes not only possible but inevitable. First, true leadership is not determined by a title, a corner office, or a badge of authority. 400s, it is measured by character. And at the center of character lies integrity. integrity over position is the principle that what you stand for matters more than where you stand on an organizational chart. It's about prioritizing honesty, fairness, and consistency, even when there's no applause, even when doing so might cost influence or advantage. This principle separates fleeting power from enduring respect. Integrity means alignment between words and actions. Panthers a my salary for an of I thu 100. It's the practice of doing the right thing when no one is watching, refusing to bend your values to fit a convenient narrative, funny halad, quid weir, twain salaried, and upholding commitments, even when it's difficult. Positions of authority can change overnight. Integrities is the quality that remains steady. 27 Dolphins. 401 is when a person leads with integrity. Their credibility and influence persist far beyond their formal role. One of the great misconceptions about leadership is that it flows from hierarchy. In reality, leadership flows from trust. People do not follow positions, they follow principles. A person with integrity can influence decisions, shape culture, hundreds, and inspire others, regardless of their title. Conversely, a person in a high-ranking position but without integrity erodes trust, diminishes morale, and invites conflict. The absence of integrity empties authority of its meaning. Integrity over position also underscores the idea of responsibility. Can 27's 400 titles can grant power, but they cannot guarantee accountability. When individuals base their decisions on integrity rather than self-interest, they create a ripple effect. Colleagues, neighbors, and communities learn that fairness and honesty are not optional, they are expected. 2070. This creates an environment where unethical behavior is challenged, transparency is valued, and long-term trust takes priority over short-term gain. Living with integrity also demands courage. It requires telling uncomfortable truths, refusing to compromise core values, and 20D7-400, and sometimes standing alone against group pressure. It is easier to follow the path of least resistance, to look the other way, tack 47-400, to say what people want to hear, or to protect one's own status. But integrity resists that temptation. It insists on consistency between inner belief and outward behavior. Integrity can also elevate entire organizations. 400. Leaders prioritize integrity over position. They signal to everyone that values matter more than hierarchy. Decision-making becomes more transparent. Fairness becomes my salary, for fairness becomes a shared expectation, and people feel safe to speak up. This kind of environment attracts talent, fosters collaboration, anonymity fouls in 27 and sustains progress because it is built on trust rather than fear. In everyday life, integrity over position shows up in countless ways. It says that it's the employee who tells the truth about a mistake rather than covering it. Culavos twins my salad. 400s. It's the board member who votes for the best interest of the community even when it's unpopular. It's the volunteer who delivers on a promise even when it's inconvenient. In each example, there is a choice to act on principle rather than power. We see seconds. Foolery 400. A person who chooses integrity over position also demonstrates humility and resilience. They understand that influence does not have to come from authority. Instead, influence arises naturally from consistency, honesty, and service to others. Over time, this approach generates a reputation that can outlast any formal appointment. Moreover, integrity is self-reinforcing. 20s and hundreds. Each act of integrity strengthens the individual's resolve to continue acting ethically. 400s. It builds an internal compass that becomes harder to compromise with every use. This consistency makes decisions clearer because it eliminates the mental strain of constantly weighing expediency against ethics. By contrast, to Uring goes and gets my salary a sacrificing integrity for position leads to erosion of confidence, both from others and within oneself. Integrity over position also models. 2024s also models something essential for future generations. When younger people see adults valuing principle over power, 27-400s. They internalize the belief that leadership is about service, honesty, and accountability, rather than prestige. 27 to Ladin 6. This creates a cultural shift where ethical behavior is the norm, not the exception. Finally, integrity over position unlocks authentic connection. To 170, 400 people can sense sincerity and they gravitate toward it. Leaders and peers who demonstrate integrity earn not just compliance, but commitment. In teams, 400 neighborhoods and organizations, this shared commitment builds resilience and unity. When integrity is the cornerstone or stone, trust becomes the natural currency. Transparency is the oxygen of healthy relationships, organizations, and communities. Without it, misunderstandings multiply, skepticism hardens, and trust erodes. Trust flourishes, collaboration deepens, and a sense of shared purpose emerges. Transparency builds trust. Is not a slogan. Trailer is to give it a easy for the 1000 Please be progent bits a principle rooted in human seventh psychology. People naturally want to know what is happening, how decisions are made, and why certain choices affect them. When leaders, institutions, or neighbors are open about their processes and intentions, they create an environment where trust can thrive. At its core, 27s. Huller 20s and 400s. Transparency is about openness and honesty. It involves sharing information proactively rather than waiting for it to be demanded. 27 and 400s. This could mean explaining how funds are allocated, how policies are developed, or how decisions are reached. It also means my salary for it also means acknowledging mistakes openly and correcting them promptly. Transparency isn't about perfection. It's about honesty and consistency. Hundreds, when people feel they're getting the full picture. Even if the picture contains bad news, 1400s, they are more likely to support and respect the decision makers involved. Transparency builds a bridge between authority and community. In workplaces, it allows employees to see how their efforts contribute to the bigger picture. In neighborhoods, it helps residents understand why certain rules or initiatives exist. This sense of inclusion turns passive observers into active participants. People who understand the why behind decisions are more likely to buy into the what and this buy-in is critical for sustained success in any collective endeavor. One of the greatest benefits of transparency is its ability to reduce rumors and misinformation. In the absence of clear information, speculation fills the gap. 400. This can lead to distrust, conflict, and division, but when information is communicated openly and accurately, it limits the space for speculation. Sal 100. People can still disagree with decisions, but at least they're reacting to facts rather than assumptions. 400. This level of clarity fosters constructive dialogue instead of destructive rumor. Transparency also enhances accountability. 27-400. When processes and decisions are visible, it's harder for unethical behavior to hide. People become more careful and responsible because they know their actions are subject to scrutiny. Scene 7 might Sal agree or Dave as by creates a culture of integrity where rules apply equally and favoritism or hidden agendas have less room to thrive. In leadership, transparency signals respect. It shows that the people affected by decisions are seen as partners, not subordinates. By sharing information, leaders acknowledge the intelligence and autonomy of others. This respect invites reciprocal honesty, creating a virtuous cycle of openness. Over time, 27,400. This cycle transforms relationships from transactional to collaborative, where all parties feel valued and included. Another aspect of transparency is emotional openness. While data and policies matter, transparency also involves being human enough to admit uncertainty, stress, for under our changing circumstances. This vulnerability can deepen trust because it demonstrates authenticity. People don't expect leaders or peers to be perfect. They expect them to be reals. Transparency requires skill and balance. Sharing every detail without context can overwhelm or confuse, while withholding too much can breed suspicion. Effective transparency involves clear, timely communication with an emphasis on relevance. It's about showing people not just the outcome, but the reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
This context helps them see the fairness, thoughtfulness, or necessity of a decision, even if they don't agree with it. Technology has expanded the possibilities for transparency. Public dashboards, open data portals, live-streamed meetings, and social media updates can keep stakeholders informed in real time. While these tools don't guarantee honesty, provide channels for it. Used wisely, they can empower communities to hold each makers accountable and participate more fully in collective life. Transparency also strengthens resilience during crises. When something goes wrong, a financial shortfall, a policy mistake, 400s, an emergency, open communication calms anxiety and prevents panic. People are more willing to endure hardship or adapt to change when they feel informed and respected. Even difficult news, when delivered transparently, 1,400, can build credibility rather than destroy it. Finally, transparency cultivates a sense of shared ownership. When people know how decisions are made and where resources go, they feel more responsible for outcomes. Twins and sevens. This sense of ownership motivates them to contribute ideas, volunteer their time, or collaborate on solutions. In this way, 400. Transparency is not just a communication practice, but a mechanism for empowerment. Courage to confront injustice is one of the most powerful and transformative forces a person can possess. Injustice, by its nature, thrives in silence and compliance. It grows stronger when people look away, excuse unethical behavior, or decide it's not their problem. Yet history repeatedly shows that change begins when even one person dares to speak up, stand firm, and challenge the status quo. This courage does not emerge from the absence of fear, but from the conviction that some principles are worth risking discomfort, reputation, or even personal safety. At its core, confronting injustice is an act of moral clarity. 400. It requires seeing beyond personal convenience to recognize when others are being harmed or exploited. This clarity is often the first and hardest step. Many people sense when something is wrong, but hesitate to define it define it as injustice because doing so carries an implicit responsibility to act. Forderdralen. By naming an injustice, a person sets in motion the expectation for action, and with that, accountability. Courage in this context also means rejecting the illusion of neutrality. In situations of clear harm, 400. Neutrality often serves the oppressor rather than the oppressed. Silence can be interpreted as acceptance, and inaction can reinforce the very structures that perpetuate unfairness. Courage is not about rash or reckless behavior. It's about making the conscious choice to stand where it is right to stand, even when it is unpopular or uncomfortable. Confronting injustice can take many forms, 7 problems. It might be a whistleblower exposing corruption, and an employee challenging discriminatory practices. Make the 400 for a neighbor speaking up at a community meeting, or a student organizing for better policies at their school. These actions differ in scale but share the same essence, the refusal to accept harm as inevitable. Foremost. One of the most profound aspects of courage is its ripple effect. When one person speaks out, others often find their own voices. Dollary laws of bravery can looks as 400 is frolic of bravery can shift the tone of a room, embolden others to step forward, and eventually turn isolated resistance into collective action. Unser alley words. This is why those who challenge injustice frequently become catalysts for larger movements. Their courage breaks the spell of inevitability and reminds everyone that change is possible. Courage also involves preparation and resilience. Standing up to injustice rarely produces instant results. It often invites backlash, criticism, or attempts to discredit the person speaking out. To endure this, true individuals need a clear sense of their values, a support network, and the patience to persist even when progress is slow. This resilience transforms courage from a single moment of action into a sustained practice of advocacy. Another key element is empathy. 400. Courage to confront injustice is fueled not just by abstract ideals, but by a deep sense of connection to others. 400. When people allow themselves to feel the suffering of someone else, injustice becomes personal rather than theoretical. This emotional connection provides the energy to push past fear and fatigue. It also helps ensure that efforts to address injustice remain grounded in compassion rather than vengeance. Importantly, 400 courage doesn't always mean dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it's expressed through strategic behind-the-scenes work. Gathering evidence, educating others, building coalitions, or creating alternatives to harmful systems. This quiet form of courage is no less vital. It recognizes that meaningful change often requires patience, planning, and collaboration as much as bold declarations. In confronting injustice, humility plays a role too. Courage must be balanced with self-awareness and a willingness to learn. Those who challenge harmful systems may discover their own blind spots or biases. Remaining open to feedback and growth ensures that their actions reflect genuine justice rather than self-righteousness. Finally, courage to confront injustice nurtures integrity and self-respect. Even when the outcome is uncertain, taking a stand affirms one's deepest values. It reinforces the belief that principles are not negotiable and that individual choices matter. This similar to Thu's internal alignment between belief and action creates a strength that cannot easily be shaken. Are hundreds, allowing people to persist in their efforts with dignity and purpose. Unity is more than simply the absence of conflict, is Siakon 700. It is the active weaving together of different people, ideas, and experiences into a stronger whole. When individuals rally around a shared purpose, they transform from a collection of the things separate interests and separate interests into a force capable of achieving what none could accomplish alone. For this 7, unity does not erase differences, but harmonizes them, channeling diverse strengths toward a common goal. In a world often marked by division, the idea of unity, through shared purpose, offers a blueprint for collaboration, resilience, and meaningful progress. At the heart of unity is purpose. 400. Purpose acts as a compass, orienting people toward a destination larger than themselves. When people understand 400 nond. When people understand not just what they are doing, but why they are doing it, their energy and commitment increase dramatically. 400. This sense of purpose lifts individuals out of isolation, giving them a sense of belonging to something that matters. It also clarifies decision-making, 2700s. 400 because choices can be evaluated against the collective mission rather than personal preference alone. 27 in 4 Hausler, shared purpose is powerful because it taps into intrinsic motivation. External rewards like money or recognition can fade. 27s, 400. But internal motivation rooted in meaning and contribution endures. When people feel they are part of something purposeful, they bring more creativity, 7 or 400, persistence, and generosity to their efforts. This is why teams, organizations, and communities aligned around a clear, 27s, 400s, shared purpose outperform those held together by obligation or inertia. Unity through shared purpose also builds trust. 27, 400. When individuals know they are working toward the same overarching goal, they are more likely to interpret each other's actions in good faith. This reduces suspicion, competition, and defensiveness. Trust allows for constructive disagreement. Even because people believe their differences will ultimately serve the shared mission. Over time, 400 desert. This creates a culture of openness where diverse viewpoints are welcomed rather than feared. Another essential aspect of unity is inclusion. Books and shared purpose cannot be imposed from the top down. It must be created with input from those it affects. Rakrusa runs, he 400, people are more likely to embrace a mission when they have helped shape it. 237, 400. This inclusivity ensures that the purpose resonates across different backgrounds and perspectives, making it stronger and more sustainable. Paul Sithali, Eins full 100 dana clave and a frau sert also pro 100, from inclusion pregu the events unity from becoming the richness of diversity, while still aligning everyone toward a common end. It's maps at 27. 400 leadership plays a critical role in cultivating unity through shared purpose. Effective leaders articulate a compelling vision and communicate it consistently, class the guests 27th, 400. But they also model the behaviors and values that's they support it. They listen as much as they speak, foster collaboration rather than competition, 27s, 400, and celebrate collective achievements. This approach signals that the mission is not owned by a select few but belongs to everyone involved. Unity is also sustained by rituals and symbols. Shared practices, whether meetings, volunteer efforts, or community events, reinforce the collective identity. Symbols such as slogans, logos, Airways 27 Vrelis 400, or even that simple traditions remind people of the larger mission and their role within it. Feed elements. These elements create continuity and a sense of belonging that can weather challenges and change. Conflict is inevitable in any group, but unity through shared purpose turns conflict into an opportunity rather than a threat. When disagreements arise, fierce, the shared mission serves as a reference point for resolution. Instead of fighting over personal wins, participants can ask, Kalauzert, what best serves our collective goal? This reframing transforms conflict from divisive to constructive. 27s. Voraus of Fidrosi Hun gets my strengthening rather than weakening the group's cohesion. Unity through shared purpose also creates resilience in times of adversity. When challenges arise, Suas points my swan Igor's Henry Hook your other true screw. Without a clear mission may fracture under stress, but those with a shared purpose draw closer together. The collective commitment acts as a stabilizing force, inspiring mutual support and creative problem solving. The 207's 400. People endure difficulties more willingly when they feel they are sacrificing for something meaningful. Finally, 7,400. Unity through shared purpose sparks a sense of shared ownership. When people see their contributions reflected in the group's progress for the Hollery day to 27,400, they develop pride and accountability. This mutual investment amplifies results because everyone feels responsible for both the process and the outcome. 2,700, 400. Rather than waiting for someone else to act, individuals step forward, knowing they are part of a whole that depends on their effort and integrity. Empathy is often misunderstood as a soft skill, something nice to have but secondary to real leadership qualities, like decisiveness or strategic thinking. 400. In truth, empathy is a core leadership competency. It is the ability to see through another person's eyes, feel what they feel, and understand their experiences without judgment. When leaders practice empathy, they unlock a level of trust, communication, and 400, and collaboration that cannot be achieved by authority alone. At its core, empathy as leadership begins with listening. True listening is more than waiting for your turn to speak. It's about actively focusing on the other person's words, tone, co-hundred, and body language to grasp not just what they're saying, but why they're saying it. Vine, Anna, 400. This deeper understanding allows leaders to respond to concerns more effectively, anticipate needs, and identify unspoken problems before they escalate. By listening with empathy, leaders demonstrate respect and value for the people they serve. Empathy also helps leaders bridge differences in any group. In any group, whether a workplace, a community, or a volunteer organization, individuals bring diverse backgrounds, perspectives, and challenges. Empathy, these differences can become fault lines. With empathy, they become sources of strength, and that becomes where there's of trust. 400. Leaders who seek to understand these differences rather than erase them can design policies, strategies, and Dellard. 100 and environments that meet people where they are instead of forcing them into a one-size-fits-all mold. The hose of us 100. One of the most powerful aspects of empathy is its role in decision-making. Decisions affect real people. Calabi 127's 400, and empathy helps leaders consider those human consequences alongside financial or operational factors. This doesn't mean leaders avoid difficult choices 20,700 day, but it does mean they approach them with compassion and transparency, even when people disagree with a decision. 27,400s. They're more likely to accept it if they feel their perspective was heard and weighed sincerely. Empathy also fosters resilience within groups. Woman, tempefes dog 40 and sec for a day. Will if flew this restored on her sieg when to 2640 and zid taller, their peoples are more likely to persevere through challenges, adapt to change, and maintain loyalty. And 27,400, a leader who recognizes the human side of adversity. The stress, the uncertainty, personal sacrifices can offer encouragement and resources that make a tangible difference in morale and performance. Crucially, empathy is not just about kindness, it's about effectiveness. Teams led by empathetic leaders tend to be more innovative because people feel safe sharing ideas without fear of ridicule. Paras, they're 27s. They're also more willing to take responsible risks, knowing their leader will support them, even if things don't go perfectly. 20s, 400s. This psychological safety leads to higher engagement, stronger collaboration, and more sustainable results. Practicing empathy as leadership also requires self-awareness. Leaders must understand their own biases, triggers, and blind spots to truly appreciate others' perspectives. Without self-awareness, 400s, empathy can become performative, a veneer of concern without authentic connection. Anyone hawking trounlius when miles at this acquisite salaried proposal get 20 salaries 40 brother express the willing assumptions and to the recognize that your perspective is only one among many. Empathy extends beyond interpersonal interactions to organizational culture. Leaders can design systems, policies, and workflows with empathy in mind. 27,400. This could mean flexible schedules to accommodate family responsibilities, accessible communication channels for people who feel unheard. 27th Zather Advance 400, or fair opportunities for advancement across all backgrounds. When empathy informs structural decisions, it creates an environment where people can thrive, survive. Another dimension of empathy is its ability to diffuse conflict. When tensions rise, an empathetic leader can slow down, listen to all sides, standards, and validate emotions before moving to problem solving. This approach escalates defensiveness and opens space for constructive dialogue. Tosim Quidi 7s. 400 conflict doesn't disappear, but it becomes more manageable because these people feel seen and respected. Empathy also serves as a moral compass. In fast-paced or high-pressure situations, it's easy to focus solely on numbers or outcomes. Empathy reminds leaders that their decisions have human implications and ethical dimensions. This doesn't weaken leadership. 400. It strengthens it by aligning actions with deeply held values. Finally, empathy nurtures connection and loyalty. Don't just remember what who Dellens Forden and people don't just remember Saukin or accomplished, they remember how that leader made them feel. When individuals feel valued, respected, and understood, they develop a sense of belonging that transcends transactional relationships. The connection motivates them to go beyond their minimum obligations. 7,400. Contributing creativity, energy, and commitment to shared goals. Education and preparation are the twin engines that power growth, opportunity, and resilience. Viana the Retrogansmary, the 27s following 4 days, they are not limited to classrooms or degrees. They encompass the continuous pursuit of knowledge, skill building, and readiness to meet life's challenges. In a world that evolves rapidly, where technology reshapes industries and social change redefines expectations, Wovies Guff laugh. Lundy's miles of salary for a day, 27 for holders, the people for those who invest in learning and prepare for the moment when opportunity and responsibility converge. Regimes. Education is more than acquiring facts. It's about expanding perspectives. It cultivates critical thinking, empathy, and adaptability, whether through formal schooling, apprenticeships, or self-directed study. 400s. Education opens doors by equipping individuals with the tools to understand complex systems and solve new problems. 27th 400. It also nurtures the confidence to question assumptions, innovate, and envision possibilities that others might overlook. 27,000. 4400. Preparation complements education by transforming knowledge into readiness. Being prepared means anticipating challenges, practicing skills, and organizing resources before they're urgently needed. Proactive approach distinguishes those who react to circumstances from those who shape them. Preparation is the difference between walking into a room unsure of your role and stepping forward with clarity and purpose. 27. Strongest benefits of education and preparation is empowerment. People who are informed and performed and prepared feel more agency over their lives. 27 400. They are less easily manipulated, more capable of advocating for themselves and others, and better equipped to navigate uncertainty. 2. This empowerment radiates outward, strengthening families, workplaces, and communities. Education and preparation also reinforce each other. Education provides the knowledge base, while preparation tests and applies it. For example, learning about public speaking is valuable, but preparing by practicing speeches, anticipating questions, and studying your audience makes that knowledge actionable. Likewise, understanding leadership theory is important, but preparing by observing mentors, reflecting on your values, and rehearsing tough conversations builds the confidence to lead effectively and evacuatively when the time comes. Another dimension of education and preparation is resilience. Unexpected turns, job loss, health crisis, societal shifts. Test not only our emotional strength, but also our practical readiness. A person who continually learns and prepares develops a toolkit of adaptable skills and strategies. This makes them more capable of pivoting, rethinking, and recovering from setbacks. Preparation for the recovering from stressing like them cannot prevent hardship, but it can drastically improve the ability to respond with composure and effectiveness. 27 400. Education also cultivates humility. The more we learn, the more we recognize the vastness of what we don't know. This humility drives curiosity and openness, which in turn feed focal learning, which in 27 did deeper learning. It breaks the illusion of certainty and encourages ongoing exploration rather than complacency. 4000. Preparation reflects this humility as well. It acknowledges that success is rarely accidental and that foresight is an act of respect for the challenges ahead. 27. Technology has transformed both education and preparation. Online courses, open source materials, the Twandarus and global networks allow people to learn almost anything from anywhere. Simulation tools and data analytics enable preparation on scales once unimaginable. Yet these tools are only as effective as the mindset behind them. Lifelong learning and intentional preparation remain the foundation. While technology acts as an amplifier, education and preparation are also acts of service. By investing in our own growth, increase our capacity to contribute to Others. A well-prepared teacher enriches students' lives. A well-prepared community organizer uplifts neighborhoods. A well-prepared parent creates stability for children. 400. This ripple effect demonstrates that personal development is not selfish but essential to collective progress. In leadership roles, education and preparation inspire credibility. People trust leaders who demonstrate knowledge, competence, and foresight. A 27 read. They ordered Flamos leave the Selis lettered and sevens alert for a day to follow someone who clearly has done their homework, planned for contingencies, and understands the stakes involved. This credibility cannot be faked. It comes from sustained effort over time. Finally, education and preparation nurture confidence without arrogance. Individuals know they have studied and practiced. They can act decisively without overcompensating or posturing. This quiet confidence attracts respect and collaboration. It also fuels persistence. 400. Because setbacks become opportunities to learn and adjust rather than reasons to quit. 400. The persistence despite ridicule is one of the clearest marks of inner strength and conviction. Almost every person who has attempted something new, unconventional, transformative has faced skepticism, mockery, or outright hostility. This ridicule can be subtle. A raised eyebrow, a dismissive comment, or overt salaried approaches 27 public criticism and social exclusion. Yet, persistence in the face of ridicule has repeatedly proven to be a driving force behind breakthroughs, innovations, and acts of courage. At its heart, persistence despite ridicule is about self-belief. It is the recognition that your values, goals, have for a date. Each one's my Sally have merit even when others cannot yet see. This self-belief is not arrogance, but conviction. A quiet assurance born from reflection, preparation, salary and clarity of purpose. It allows individuals to stand firm when external validation is absent or delayed. Ridicule often arises from fear or misunderstanding. People may mock what they do not understand, especially if it challenges long-held assumptions or threatens established systems. Rouse. This reaction is not always malicious. It can simply be a form of self-protection or discomfort with change. Understanding this dynamic can help individuals take ridicule less personally, viewing it as a predictable stage of resistance rather than a definitive judgment of their worth. Persistence in the face of ridicule also builds resilience. 400. Each time someone continues moving forward despite mockery, they strengthen their capacity to withstand future challenges. This resilience becomes a form of armor, not by hardening the heart, but by clarifying priorities. Over time, 400, external noise matters less than the internal compass guiding one's actions. Another dimension of persistence is adaptability. To mean one's and staying the course doesn't mean refusing to commitment or adjust. It means maintaining commitment while remaining flexible in approach. Hundreds. When ridicule contains kernels of truth, persistent individuals can extract the useful feedback without being crushed by the negativity. The ability to discern between constructive criticism and baseless mockery, Lunfrey allows for growth without surrendering core principles. Role models throughout history show how persistence, despite ridicule, often precedes change. Scientific pioneers, social reformers, artists, and entrepreneurs have all endured skepticism before their ideas gained acceptance. 27. 400. These examples remind us that ridicule is frequently a lagging indicator, a sign that an idea is ahead of its time rather than inherently flawed. Recognizing this pattern can be a powerful motivator to keep going when facing opposition. Persistence despite ridicule also nurtures authenticity. When someone chooses to persist, they affirm their commitment to their own values rather than to public approval. This integrity attracts respect over time, even from former critics. People are drawn to those who remain steady and sincere under pressure because it signals confidence and reliability. Support systems can play an important role in sustaining persistence. Friends, insisting as mentors or communities who believe in the mission can provide encouragement, 400, perspective, and constructive feedback. While self-belief is essential, no one is an island. Dang peace aquatecu thought and their hosdier alitzer 27 or elg external support can help counterbalance ridicule and prevent isolation, allowing persistence to feel like a shared endeavor rather than a solitary struggle. Moreover, persistence despite ridicule is an exercise in emotional discipline. It requires managing self-doubt, frustration, and the desire for immediate validation. This discipline strengthens patience and focus, which are essential for long-term achievement. It also cultivates empathy. Prundris, as individuals who have endured ridicule, are often more understanding of others facing similar challenges. Colosens fundrids. 27 for another key aspect is reframing ridicule as evidence of progress. If an idea or action is so unremarkable that no one notices, it is unlikely to provoke ridicule. Havri freer. The very presence of mockery often means that the effort is visible and impactful enough to disrupt existing patterns. 2700 seeing ridicule as a sign of traction rather than failure can transform discouragement into motivation. Finally, persistence despite ridicule empowers others. 400. Witnessing someone continue despite mockery can embolden bystanders to follow their own convictions. It demonstrates that courage is possible. That criticism need not be fatal, and that meaningful change often requires endurance before acceptance. In this way, persistence not only advances individual goals, but also inspires collective courage. Building beyond the crisis is about more than recovering from hardship. It is about using disruption as a catalyst to create something stronger, fairer, and more resilient than what came before. Crisis, whether personal, organizational, or societal, reveals vulnerabilities and weaknesses, 27s. But it also exposes hidden strengths and opportunities. Leaders, gurus, and communities who understand this dynamic can transform setbacks into foundations for future success. When a crisis strikes, first, the immediate focus is forval. People mobilize resources, make rapid decisions, and adapt to changing circumstances. This period of acute response is crucial, but it cannot be the end point. Building beyond the crisis requires shifting from reaction to reconstruction, from putting out fires to redesigning the structure, so it will not burn as easily again. This shift calls for foresight, creativity, and the courage to rethink old assumptions. One of the most important aspects of building beyond a crisis is learning from it. Every crisis leaves clues, weaknesses in systems, gaps in communication, neglected areas of preparation, and underutilized strengths. conducting honest post-crisis assessments, gathering data, and listening to those directly affected can yield insights that drive smarter strategies. Without this learning process, people risk recreating the same vulnerabilities and repeating the same mistakes. Another dimension is resilience. 27,400. True resilience is not merely the ability to bounce back to the previous state, but the capacity to adapt and improve. This means institutionalizing lessons learned, diversifying resources, and embedding flexibility into plans and structures. Resilience also involves investing in people. Training, mental health support, 20,100, and this acquiescence mirror so that individuals are able to handle uncertainty and change. Vision plays a crucial role in building beyond the crisis. 400. Crises can erode hope and narrow perspectives, but visionary leadership can reframe the moment as an inflection point. A clear 27,400. Calling vision helps people see beyond the immediate pain toward a future worth striving for. This vision must be grounded in reality yet bold enough to inspire collective action. It should be articulated repeatedly and reinforced through tangible steps that show progress. Collaboration is another cornerstone of post-crisis building. Display 27,400. Disruptions often break down silos and force cooperation, but once the emergency passes, old divisions can re-emerge. Proactively sustaining partnerships, 27,400. Coalitions and networks for coalitions forged during the crisis can accelerate rebuilding and innovation. Diverse perspectives enrich the process, GATSAC 700. Ensuring that solutions are comprehensive and equitable rather than narrowly tailored. Economic and structural rebuilding are key component in pronoxid the people spusins IOS was 300, but so are cultural and emotional renewal. After a crisis, people may experience grief, burnout, or disillusionment. 400. Addressing these human dimensions is essential. Listening sessions, community rituals, transparent communication, videos, and shared decision-making can help restore trust and engagement. Without this human-centered approach, 20,000, even the best technical plans may falter because the people implementing them are not fully invested or healed. Building beyond a crisis also means planning for the next one, the Aunisu one. This involves developing early warning systems, creating contingency plans to undree, and rehearsing responses. It may also mean reallocating resources to prevention rather than solely to reaction. 2. This forward-looking mindset converts painful experience into preparedness, making future disruptions less devastating. Innovation frequently accelerates during crises, because constraints force creativity. See? Leaders and teams who capture and nurture these innovations afterward can turn temporary adaptations into permanent improvements. 400. This could include adopting new technologies, reimagining service delivery, or redesigning workflows. By institutionalizing these innovations, Gets My Salary 400 Giles organizations can emerge more agile and competitive than before. Another vital aspect is equity. Crises often magnify existing inequalities, then with the most vulnerable bearing the heaviest burdens. Building beyond the crisis of 7,400, the building beyond the crisis offers a chance to correct these disparities by designing systems and policies that are more inclusive and just. Doing so not only strengthens the moral foundation of a community or organization, but also enhances its stability and cohesion over time. Finally, building beyond the crisis is a mindset as much as a process. It asks people to see disruption not only as a threat, but also as a turning point. A moment when old certainties fall away and new possibilities emerge. Redunce. This mindset fosters courage, adaptability, and imagination. It encourages leaders and communities to move deliberately, Parallels 400s, to rebuild with intention rather than inertia, and to treat each crisis as an opportunity to align action with higher principles and long-term goals. Control 400. The courage to stand for it alone is one of the rarest yet most defining qualities of leadership and personal character. It wants Stanley Larsmans. It is this Kakabames gets my salary for a day is the willingness to hold to men's principles even when they are unpopular, to make decisions that may isolate rather than ingratiate, and smite 400, and to step forward when silence would be safer. In every era, the people who change the trajectory of their communities, organizations, even entire societies are often those who dared to stand apart before others joined them. This courage begins with self-awareness. It requires clarity about your values, priorities, and non-negotiables. Without this foundation, standing alone, Snown becomes little more than rebellion for its own sake. With it, however, the act takes on meaning and integrity. It signals a commitment to something larger than personal comfort or approval. Knowing where you stand, 400s. Knowing where you stand enables you to know when to take a. Standing alone is not the same as being reckless or confrontational. It rejecting 400. It does not mean rejecting collaboration or refusing to listen. Rather, it is the discipline of holding firm when consensus drifts away from what is ethical, wise, necessary. 400. It is the willingness to endure discomfort and risk reputational harm because you believe the long-term truth matters more than short-term acceptance. 400. History is filled with examples of individuals who embodied this courage. Reformers who spoke against injustice before it was safe. Scientists who defended new theories against entrenched dogma. Leaders who enacted unpopular policies to avert disaster. All of them often understood that progress often begins with someone taking an isolated stand. Fornality, who translate gets my salary for the examples are not only inspirational but instructional. They reveal that isolation is frequently a precursor to change, not an indication of error. The courage to stand alone also involves emotional resilience. Human beings are social creatures. Belonging is a deep need. Deliberately risk exclusion 400. To deliberately risk exclusion triggers anxiety, self-doubt, and fear of retaliation. Managing these emotions requires inner fortitude, supportive practices, and sometimes trusted confidence. Techniques such as reflection, journaling, meditation, seeking counsel from mentors can help sustain confidence during periods of isolation. There is also an element of foresight. People who stand alone often do so because they see something others do not yet recognize, a looming risk, an overlooked opportunity, or a moral inconsistency. This ability to anticipate can be honed through study, diverse experiences, and attentive listening. With foresight, 400s. Standing alone is not simply contrarian, but grounded in evidence, insight, and preparation. Standing alone frequently tests one's communication skills. Twice and 400. Explaining your reasoning clearly and calmly, even under criticism, increases the chance of eventually winning others over. The way a person stands alone can influence whether they remain an outcast or become a catalyst. Respectful but firm communication signals integrity. A hearty while hostility or arrogance may close doors that could have opened later. Another dimension of this courage is the ability to accept uncertainty. Outcomes are rarely guaranteed. A stance may later be vindicated, modified, or even proven wrong. The willingness to risk being mistaken while acting on conscience reflects intellectual humility paired with moral conviction. This balance, firm principles with openness to evidence, allows for standing alone without becoming inflexible. The courage to stand alone can also be contagious. Witnessing someone uphold their principles can embolden others who share similar convictions but lack the confidence to speak up. In this way, 27-400s, one person's solitary stand can become the seed of collective action. This ripple effect often transforms isolation into leadership, gradually align with the stance that once seemed risky or radical. Support systems still matter even when standing alone. Trusted friends, mentors, or 27-400, or communities outside the immediate sphere of conflict can provide encouragement and perspective. The Mahan, 27-400, they remind individuals that while they may be alone in one context, they are not alone in their humanity. 27 fretwork of support helps mitigate the toll of standing apart. Finally, the courage to stand alone sharpens personal integrity. Each time an individual resists the pull of conformity in favor of authenticity, they reinforce their own character. This integrity becomes a kind of compass for 100, making future decisions clearer and faster. Over time, the willingness to stand alone shapes a reputation for honesty and reliability, drawing respect even from those who once disagreed. Hope is often misunderstood as passive wishing, a fragile sentiment for people avoiding reality. In truth, for real, hope is an active force. It is the belief that a better future is possible and the determination to work toward it despite uncertainty, obstacles, or setbacks. Far from being naive, hope is one of the most strategic and transformative resources an individual or community can possess. At its essence, hope functions as a psychological anchor. In moments of doubt or darkness, it provides a vision to orient toward, a reason to persist when the outcome is unclear. This orientation shapes choices. Hopeful people are more likely to invest in education, relationships, 27-400, and innovation because they believe their actions can influence results. This belief fuels perseverance, while hopelessness leads to inertia or surrender. 200. Hope as a force for change starts internally. It is not imposed from outside, but cultivated within through imagination, reflection, and courage. 27-400. By envisioning a more just, creative, or prosperous reality, individuals create a mental blueprint that guides behavior. And this inner picture then informs daily habits, decisions, and sacrifices. Over time, these choices accumulate into visible transformation. Take 400. Another critical dimension of hope is its collective nature. And when a group shares hope, it becomes a unifying energy that transcends individual limitations. For social justice, environmental stewardship, or technological progress, all depend on collective hope, the shared conviction that change is not only necessary, but achievable. This shared hope converts isolated actions into coordinated momentum. Hope also enhances resilience. 27-400s. People anchored by hope bounce back more quickly from disappointments because they see setbacks as temporary rather than permanent. Vinsuan Trans 7's 400. This mindset transforms failure into feedback, spurring learning and adaptation. In contrast, despair narrows vision and fosters cynicism, 400, making it harder to recover or innovate. Resilience born from hope is not blind optimism, but a disciplined refusal to give up. Leaders who wield hope effectively understand its power to inspire, and mobilize. They articulate a future worth striving for, communicate it vividly, credible plans. And back it with credible plans. This combination of vision and action reassures people that their efforts matter. When leadership aligns words with deeds, hope turns from rhetoric into a reality, igniting collective willpower. Hope is also deeply tied to dignity. It affirms that each person's contribution matters, that no one is disposable, and that improvement is possible regardless of one's starting point. This belief strengthens empathy, cooperation, and courage. 200. In workplaces, communities, or families, fostering hope can break cycles of disengagement and unlock creativity and initiative. 400. A powerful but often overlooked aspect of hope is its role in imagination. Before anything exists in the physical world, it must first be imagined. Rukis with the permission quickened. Hoped to my 7,000 for imagine without self-censorship, to consider solutions and futures beyond current constraints. By practicing hopeful imagination, individuals and groups can anticipate opportunities, develop innovations, and rethink entrenched systems. Hope also demands responsibility. 2037. 400. It is not enough to believe a better world is possible. One must act accordingly. This means setting goals, developing skills, collaborating with others, gets Fapavin 100, and taking risks. Hope without action is sentimentality, but hope combined with disciplined effort becomes a transformative engine. 400. This interplay between aspiration and accountability is what distinguishes genuine hope from wishful thinking. Importantly, hope can be renewed. It ebbs and flows with circumstances, but it can be replenished through stories, mentors, and rituals and achievements, celebrating small wins. Witnessing acts of courage or learning from history's turning points can recharge hope when it runs low. This renewal is vital because long struggles and complex challenges require sustained energy over time. Hope also reshapes identity. People who see themselves as agents of change rather than passive victims develop stronger self-efficacy and resilience. This identity shift ripples outward, affecting relationships, institutions, and culture. As hope spreads, it creates networks of trust and possibility, which in turn generate new opportunities and attract resources. Finally, hope is contagious. When one person or group embodies hope through action, through hundreds, it gives others permission to do the same. This ripple effect can turn a single spark into a broad movement, amplifying the impact far beyond the original circle. 400. Through stories, art, leadership, and consistent effort, hope travels from one heart to another, multiplying its force as it goes. Where smug smiles once sat had fallen silent. The arrogance that had allowed power to calcify had been replaced with a profound sense of reckoning. In just 3 days, 400. In just 3 days, the woman they mocked had revealed herself not as a mere cleaner, but as a steward of integrity, a leader disguised in plain sight, lavi oving ambava calbellans, and the living in embodiment of authority of accountability. By the time the residents gathered in the community hall, word of the change had already spread. 400. Yet this was not a tale of vengeance. It was a story of restoration. Under her leadership, budgets were opened, decisions were made transparent, formality, and the community was invited to participate in shaping its own destiny. Neighbors who once felt voiceless now had a seat at the table. Trust began to grow where fear had lived. She became less a symbol of power than a symbol of fairness. Having 27s, 400, showing that leadership is not about title but about service, courage, and compassion. As the HOA transformed, so did the people. 2,700 residents volunteered their time to help maintain the grounds. A Youth Mentor 7-4 program was established using HOA funds once squandered on perks for board members. Causley House, 400. The very spaces where residents had felt alienated became places of connection, creativity, and pride. At 27,400, her leadership showed them that community is not built through control, but through shared responsibility, respect, and the belief that everyone matters. 400. And as the sun set over the once contentious neighborhood, an unmistakable feeling lingered in the air. Hope. Hope that even entrenched systems can change. That ordinary people, Stroguden Tickendrets, 404 in Hodebern can do extraordinary things. Hope that no act of integrity is ever wasted, even when it is met with laughter or scorn. 7-2 of them, the residents had learned 7, something they would never forget. Titles fade, appearances deceive, but courage and principle endure. With the community finally united, the echoes of that first laugh no longer held power. In its place rose the sound of something much stronger. Neighbors talking to one another, working together. Uzenilans Pechuans Vivernzel and 400, daring to believe in a future they were now building with their own hands.